Islam is rapidly spreading like a cancer across the globe, thanks to the asinine policies of liberal politicians. But as our focus remains on terror-infested Europe, Muslims are now actively invading our Canadian neighbours to the north, as Canada recently opened their borders to whoever wants in. But in the wake of the Muslim pandering insanity, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has just done the unthinkable to America, proving that we truly need to watch our backs when it comes to this Canadian country we automatically continue to assume has our six. Justin Trudeau makes it no secret how much he loves Muslims. Immediately after President Trump initiated his original migrant ban, Trudeau was quick to jump on social media blasting Trump for being a racist, announcing the bold move to open Canada's borders to whoever wanted in, ignoring that many of the migrants are closely tied to ISIS terrorists. Then during Ramadan, Trudeau continued his love fest with Muslims, sporting Islam-themed socks, while ignoring the plight of dozens of Canadian girls and women who were sexually assaulted in Canada by the very same migrants he let invade his country. But unfortunately for the free world, Trudeau's Muslim pandering antics were just getting started. Now in an unbelievable FU to America, Canada has now decided to give $10.5 million to a convicted Gitmo terrorist who killed an American soldier, because they ruled that the terrorist was interrogated too hard after killing an American. Yes, really, MSN reported. The Canadian government is going to apologize and give millions of dollars to a former Guantanamo Bay prisoner who pleaded guilty to killing a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan when he was 15, with Canada's Supreme Court later ruling that officials had interrogated him under oppressive circumstances. An official familiar with the deal said on Tuesday that Omar Khadr will receive $10.5 million Canadian dollars, $8 million. The official was not authorized to discuss the deal publicly before the announcement and spoke on condition of anonymity. The government and Khadr's lawyers negotiated the deal last month. The Canadian-born Khadr was 15 when he was captured by U.S. troops after a firefight at a suspected al-Qaeda compound in Afghanistan that resulted in the death of an American Special Forces medic, U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Christopher Speer. Khadr, who was suspected of throwing the grenade that killed Speer, was taken to Guantanamo and ultimately charged with war crimes by a military commission. He pleaded guilty in 2010 to charges that included murder and was sentenced to 8 years plus the time he had already spent in custody. He returned to Canada 2 years later to serve the remainder of his sentence and was released in May 2015 pending an appeal of his guilty plea, which he said was made under duress. So what's the oppressive circumstances that this Muslim terrorist endured, where Canada feels it now necessary to make him a multimillionaire in order to make things right? Sleep deprivation. Yes, really. The Muslim terrorist had to endure sleep deprivation while being interrogated after killing an American. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was questioned about the move to make a Muslim terrorist who killed an American a multimillionaire, where he simply stated that judicial process is underway in order to make things right. There is a judicial process underway that has been underway for a number of years now, and we are anticipating, like I think a number of people are, that judicial process is coming to its conclusion, Trudeau said. Scott Bardsley, a spokesman for Canada's Public Safety Minister, also confirmed Canada's ridiculous decision to give multi-millions to a convicted Muslim terrorist. Settlement processes are always strictly confidential by nature. Accordingly, the government is not in a position to provide any comment one way or another, Bardsley said in an email. The widow of U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Christopher Speer is completely up in arms over the terrorist getting millions from the Canadian government, and along with another American soldier who was permanently maimed by the grenade that Khadr threw, are suing the terrorist in court for damages. MSN went on. The widow of Speer and another American soldier blinded by the grenade in Afghanistan filed a wrongful death and injury lawsuit against Khadr in 2014, fearing Khadr might get his hands on money from his $20 million wrongful imprisonment lawsuit. A U.S. judge granted $134.2 million in damages in 2015. But the plaintiffs acknowledged then that there was little chance they would collect any of the money from Carter because he lives in Canada. Former spokesman for ex-Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper weighed in on how idiotic the decision was to award the terrorist money, saying that Carter should be in prison for the murder of Sergeant Chris Speer. "This is nuts. Carter should instead be in jail for the murder of Sergeant Chris Speer, whom he killed." "No consideration for Speer's family," tweeted Carvalho, the former spokesman for ex-Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper. This is absolutely asinine. What makes it even more startling is that Carter is directly tied to Osama bin Laden, and frequently stayed at the 9/11 mastermind's house as a boy. While we continue to be distracted with Europe being invaded and terrorized by Muslim terrorists, we need to keep our eye on Ontario, Canada, as it's clear that this country does not have our backs any longer. What planet does Justin Trudeau come from where he feels it necessary to make terrorists who killed our American soldier a multimillionaire?